Well, we have two black belts on the committee here, but I'll tell you who they are.
takes a lot of infrastructure and cheap land. really.
Yeah,
That's
we
one of
learned
the
about
things. Ag land is becoming next to impossible to fund. Very tough.
thanks for your
And
input.
I don't know enough about what this
That's
committee
number
is.
4 on the ABA list.
Pardon me?
That designation is coming. Oh, right, we're number 4 on the list. The ABA now.
Oh my gosh.
So
See, we're gonna party big time, hey.
those grapes are gonna become twice as valuable.
That's awesome. That's awesome. How about you, Tony?
Well, I like what everybody's saying. I think we have to find a way that we can cultivate this land and, I want to call it, educate the growers. And this gentleman was saying that farming is not easy. And I can go out and look at certain vineyards and you can see them struggling. And go to other places, you can see the vineyards where they are the premier crop. And that's because the person farming them knows what they're doing. And you can't make good wine from bad grapes. You can make great wine from great grapes. You can make bad wine from great grapes. But if you start with the bad crop, it doesn't get any better. And I think we've got to learn how to grow crops. Backyard farming is one thing. You might make a few things and people might kind of say it's okay, but you're not going to get a premium for it. We have to learn how to grow a premium product.
Right.
May I add to that?
Of course.
So I'm glad you brought that up because as we are talking about mixing housing with, the grapes or the grapes, vineyards around them. One key thing that needs to be noted here is that if you leave that maintenance or care of those grapes to an HOA, to the city, or to a government office, we're not gonna have the great grapes that Yucaipa can produce. We see that in Livermore, we see that anywhere else. This board needs to make sure that that task is given to somebody who is dedicated, who is an expert in growing grapes, whose sole purpose is gonna be to produce those grapes to be suitable for the market. And that's the only way we're gonna make a name for ourselves here in Yucaipa, is by the quality of our grapes and our wine.
Right.
Thank you for that.
One chance to do it right, and one thing that Temecula said, is do it quality first, because it's gonna take time. What we're talking about is gonna take time, so, let's do it right. Sheila, do you have anything to add before you do your presentation?
Well, we talked about the tour in Temecula, and one thing, before we talk about the name of the committee and the specific plan, one of the lessons from Temecula was that they really unified their image across all the different areas. Their website, their city logo, the Chamber of Commerce, they presented a very unified image that supported the wine industry. So I think the name of this committee will be the first step toward that goal.
Of branding ourselves.
Yes,
That's
that's right.
that direction, okay?
So it's good to kind of keep the marketing portion in mind.
Yeah, because that won't end here.
That's
I mean,
right.
that's on our grant applications and things like that. How about you, Ben?
Nothing too much. I will say, I do agree that both the vineyard sites, both Crescent and Cesar's are very remarkable. For the photos, the Yucaipa essence, I think as long as we keep sending stuff in, we can help distill, I think, what we perceive, and better articulate those elements. And so certainly, I think, as far as the homework assignments, keep sending us stuff. We really do appreciate it. We definitely want to make sure that even imagery or thoughts that we convey reflect what is Yucaipa in of itself. And then in terms of the nuts and bolts, that's definitely where we need to be going, and that's part of the end of tonight's meeting. Part of the homework assignment is to start getting us to those more concrete details. We're still kind of capturing the essence and then distilling that, and through everyone's collective efforts here is that we'll be able to get there and keep thinking of ideas, and it's going to be a very iterative process for everyone involved, and that will get us, I think, to the outcomes that everyone is looking for as well.
Ray?
I think everybody said it very well.
There's only one thing I want to add before we go on. We've had a committee member here that's only made one meeting. And I think, in the interest of moving forward and putting somebody in that position that wants to be here, I think that we should remove him from the committee.
That Mr.
Oral, yeah.
Who was it? Jack Orwell?
I met him, he was here the first meeting, I never met him since, but he hasn't been here this is our third.
Is he at large or is he?
I don't,
Yeah,
I
he's
don't
at
know.
large.
Yeah, I don't know. So,
Why don't we put Caesar on the committee then?
let's do it. Can we do that, or do we have to go through the channels?
Make a recommendation to council, the council can typically follow that recommendation.
Let's make a
Make
recommendation.
a recommendation that we recommend to council that they appoint Caesar to the.
And I'll second it.
Wow.
I want to make the motion. Can we?
A tie, hold hands, Donna, hold his hand, come on,
Go ahead.
right
I make a
on.
motion to appoint Caesar.
I second it.
Ooh, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Caesar, that has never happened, ever. What's
One
up
thing
with
we
that? Wow, bigger party than we planned. Huh? That's never happened, has that ever happened, Ray?
Not that I remember, and then.
Probably sometime in the line.
Power to the people. Power to the people. Welcome, Caesar, sit up.
Pending council approval.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, but we got 2 votes here, we just need 1 more.
Too late, Dean, it's already been voted on.
Yeah.
No, it hasn't.
Come on, Caesar, sit up at the table. I'm not gonna say no to you if you wanna speak, come on. Welcome, really.
All right.
Okay, so let's get going. So with that, I think I turn it over to Sheila and Ben.
Okay. Well, our first task is the committee name. So we'd like to hear from you, what are your preferences? What is your favorite name?
Yeah, following the direction at the last meeting, we sent out a list of some different ideas, kind of building up some of the discussion points that we had at the last meeting, but certainly just wanted council or the committee's feedback so we can present it to council at the next meeting.
Yeah, that's right. Council will have approval over the committee name.
So Bobby, I know you were the one that was thinking about this long and hard.
Yeah, I think Yucaipa wine country is fine.
Yucaipa wine country?
I think that's fine, yeah. It's grown on me. I've heard it spoken by Sheila and several others this last month. I withdraw my controversial statements about the wine overlay or the vineyard overlay. I think the word Yucaipa.
It has to have Yucaipa in it.
Yucaipa is not known for wine,
Mhm.
not now. So calling it Yucaipa wine country overlay or planning committee or whatever is probably appropriate.
Is that a motion?
No, we're discussing. How about you? You got anybody?
I was gonna second that one.
Okay.
Just add Yucaipa to
Yeah.
number 1.
Yeah, that'll be fine.
Let's not call it YWCPC.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah.
You don't like the acronym?
No, I don't. Make a Difference Day is mad. Come on, you guys, it's supposed to be a volunteer day. Anybody else? Anybody else have any ideas? I went online and I kind of researched a little bit in Europe. I thought, oh, let's get some different name or something. And then I went to the, broader in the United States, and then I kind of searched it into California. And it seems like everybody used their region or their name in valley, and then either wine or region. But the only other thing that came up to my mind was the Yucaipa Wine Viticulture Study Committee. But if we take the committee, Yucaipa Wine Viticulture Study. But I like what number 1 with the Yucaipa. Anybody else?
It would also go along with the Yucaipa Valley AVA, that's the name of the designation.
I think that's what was confusing people, the public, that it didn't have wine in there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So like when people say, what's the AVA, that, it's
It
wine.
just correlates with the ABA.
Yeah.
the
Oh, I'm
AVA
sorry, it
Yeah, the
correlates.
AVA, Yucaipa Valley AVA is gonna be the federal designation when it gets registered.
Oh.
That will be the name of it.
There you
So
go.
this is separate, so it'll be Yucaipa Wine Country Planning.
Well, who would like to make the motion?
Do you want to be Yucaipa Valley, because it could incorporate the unincorporated areas?
Well, the AVA does, but, I mean, it's Yucaipa Valley Wine Country.
I really like
It sounds
Yucaipa.
good.
It's not just Yucaipa.
Yeah,
There-
it sounds more.
Yucaipa Valley, it comes wherever. Yeah.
Jonathan, what do you think? What does it do business-wise?
I think if you can match what's happening with the AVA, it would make sense. Yucaipa Valley Wine Country would make sense.
Anybody else?
How does everyone feel about the word hospitality in there?
That would have been the one that I would have done.
So we could, can we do both? Yeah, I think hospitality is,
I mean, that's all part of it, but that's not the bulk of what we're doing.
One is the committee and the other one's the overlay too, right? We're gonna pick a name for the overlay?
I think it's all one and the same.
I thought it was two different.
Is it?
They can't be two different names or use the same name for both. It's just, I think the committee's recommendation either way.
what are the both? I'm sorry, I missed, what are we talking about? What are the two things?
There was gonna be a name for the committee and a name for the overlay.
Specific time.
And also the specific plan, so there are actually two things. We haven't established if there will be an overlay now.
Well, let's keep them all the same.
Yeah,
I think an effort to keep it simple.
Yeah, wine country, Yucaipa wine country.
Confusing. So Yucaipa Valley Wine Country Planning Committee, or Wine Country Planning.
Hospitality and Jonathan Valley's.
Olives and agriculture. Okay, well, it seems like we're all in like-minded. Does anybody want to have the honor of making the motion? Bobby, looking
What's
at me
the
like
official
that. You're the one that had to read it. You do it. Come on. Come on.
I make a motion that we call our committee the Yucaipa Valley Wine Country Planning Committee.
Second.
Woo! All in favor?
Alright.
Any opposed? Dang, look at, we're unanimous.
Okay.
We're doing it.
That
Go.
helps us.
Okay.
So,
You're gonna name the specific plan too?
Same thing.
yes, specific plan will be the use of the valley.
Wine country specific plan. Yeah, that was easy. Dang.
So, the next item on the agenda is the online survey results. And, we had a sample of 138 respondents to the survey. We had 10 questions. We gave them, from 1 to 5, with 5 being the highest, 1 being the lowest. And we have the results to share with you.
How many total were there again?
138, isn't that correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, something like that, yeah. And the survey itself, the digital file was sent to him, so in there you can see the number of respondents at the bottom, showing those that responded to it.
Oh, here it
those
is, yeah.
that skipped as well.
Right, so overall, the response is very positive. It shows that there will be a lot of support from the public once the wine country gets established. So, and especially the first question had the most positive response. I am supportive of creating a destination wine country within Yucaipa. So 71% of the respondents said yes, and no was only 12.5%. So then wine industry related uses such as tasting rooms and wine processing facilities would be appropriate within Yucaipa. We had 67.65% saying yes to that. And then I would be likely to visit a local Yucaipa winery on a monthly basis. We had about half say yes to that, but that's, a monthly basis is pretty frequent.
That's a lot of winos.
And so, so we had no at about 24.46%. So I take that as positive too. And then wine-related tourism would be beneficial to Yucaipa. We had 70% say yes, 69.85.
Wow. That's surprising.
That is, yes. Only 11% said no. The wine industry should strongly be identified with the City of Yucaipa and branding materials such as the city logo. That one had the lowest response, that was 47% yes. But still, almost half said that.
So I think those are the people who really miss the orange groves.
And then new vineyards and small boutique wineries would be consistent with the rural atmosphere of Yucaipa. 67% said yes.
Wow.
So I think this is really good information for the next steps. It is appropriate for vineyards to be located near houses, residences, if the uses are separated by a buffer area. And yes, 53%. Winery themed special event venues for hosting weddings, less than 200 guests, and appropriate events would be appropriate in Yucaipa. We had 64% say yes. So, and we are finding we're working on the economic development study, and we're finding that those extra venues are key to economic success. So, and then it would be appropriate for wine-related hospitality uses such as bed and breakfast or small boutique hotels to be located in Yucaipa. Yes, 65%. Then the last question, a winery themed public trail providing connections between open space, Youngland Road, scenic view corridor, and vineyards would be appropriate for Yucaipa. 70.59%, yes. That was the second highest response. So it shows that the open space and trails are really a big part of what the public is looking for. So does anyone have any comments or questions?
I'm surprised.
Let's send that to the state who wants us to do ADUs all over the place.
There's a correction on that, it was 136 respondents total, and then there was a question about the buffer.
Oh, and it's 100-foot buffer.
Yeah, it did say specifically 100 buffer.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
Which
that's,
I believe that should be the minimum.
You
yes.
think 100 feet from the
At
white?
least.
Yeah.
Yeah.
From a street or from the house?
Can I share this photo, just pass it around? This is an example of housing on one side with a 100-foot buffer between the large vineyards.
Yes, on the far corner, you'll see the houses, and there's a buffer right there.
Where's that picture from?
Livermore.
And that also works well because you can bring your cars to be able to harvest and stuff like that, so it works well.
And it's plenty wide enough for hiking and horse training.
What about distance
I'd love
buffer
to ride
between vineyards? Do we need any buffer between two vineyards, or they should be? But
Pretty pretty.
Now, that's a good picture. There's also bad pictures of where Livermore got it wrong, which I'm just gonna leave these with you so that you can see what I mean to get one chance. Because there's awful places in Livermore, just awful.
You're welcome to share those too.
You know what's impressive is that as you look at this, because, you know, a lot of the babies can be swayed, there's not a lot of hard line no's all up and down. They're all.
Right.
analytical.
That's right, yeah.
I think the buffer is because people don't understand what that means.
Yeah.
That's true.
Or maybe the ranchettes, I like that so much better than cluster houses. I mean, if you use that word instead of the cluster houses, it might be a different story.
Right.
What word?
The cluster houses instead of ranchettes, for recommendation of ranchettes, I like
So
that,
this is
cluster
the picture
ranchettes.
that was used in the report as a good example of Livermore. So I'll trust everybody
One of
remembers
the
this
earlier
photo.
questions there was, would you visit once a month? And
That photo does not
response.
exist anymore in Livermore.
I don't drink, so, but I do visit a couple of wineries down in Temecula. But we eat lunch or dinner.
Right, yeah, because of the
and,
atmosphere.
And probably every other week, so
Here to here.
that component of it would
A
bring
little longer because
more
there's a.
people.
But
And
it's
Tony, one of the things, you guys, one of the things that we learned on our field trip, yeah, I don't like this at all. One of the things we
That's
learned
the
on.
one that's in the report is a good example.
I didn't look at it good, sorry. One of the things that we learned in our field trip to Temecula was that, you know, those things come and those higher end restaurants and the higher end amenities come with the tax receipts. Didn't they tell us that, Bobby? They do studies. They hired a consultant, you guys. They hired a consultant to do studies and get the tax receipts, right? Because the income was going up, and all these tax receipts were going up. And so they wanted Trader Joe's, they wanted a Sprouts, they wanted all these high ends and Nordstroms. And they said, you guys, you don't have the receipts to show us that these people will pay for that. And they hired a consultant to do a study over like 3 years, showing that the tax, they're getting, you know, more money is being spent there because of the wineries. And then over time, they showed us that 60 or 70% of their tax, monies, their revenue comes from visitors that come in and leave within a few hours, and that was the beauty of it, but I'm surprised because usually Yucaipa, when something goes on, everybody goes, no. Everybody's like, no, don't do it, but look at, this is only, it ranges in the low teens. That's good for Yucaipa, you guys. When they do a survey in Yucaipa, it's usually not this pleasant.
I think the no, was when the median age was 66. Now the median age is 38.
Yeah.
So you're gonna get a whole lot different answer now than you did.
Yeah, and you guys,
that's
it's a
interesting.
different profile. Yucaipa's changing.
Was there specific, demographic that this was sent out to, or?
We had press releases.
Yeah, so it was a press release and then available through the city's social media pages. And so it was tailored to do that.
Did you see it in the newspaper?
I saw, actually, I think it was.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it was on the news mirror as well with a QR code so that people could take a photo and get directed straight to.
Is it still on there? Could they still take it?
No, this is not
This is
closed.
It's closed.
But that's part of.
Lead in. We're gonna
Oh,
do two
sorry,
more.
okay.
We're gonna do two more surveys. So our question for all of you is, what questions should we leave out that you'd like to see on the next survey?
And then what additional information would be most useful. So certainly, I think the results so far indicate there is strong community support for what our effort is going to be doing, trying to find a way to bring this budding new industry into the city. And so I think it's, as we start getting into the nuts and bolts and some of those details, what kind of topics and questions and information do we collectively need as a committee to help finalize and get into those details and make sure that we're collectively making the choices that would be supported by the community at large.
Did we deliberately leave off any questions about housing?
You can't change that.
I know that, but
You can't change that. I mean, so if we put a question up there, what benefit would it do the committee or what we're trying to accomplish if you can't accommodate, you can't change it?
we still have to talk about it. I don't want everybody to think that they were misled by what's.
Yeah, but there's not a question. There's not a question to ask the public to give us their response. I mean, we have to move forward with what we have to move forward with, right? So we have to deal with the zoning. It's not as if we can change, what's supposed to go on there and how
I'm
we have
just
to deal
trying to
with
head
it.
off what will be coming if we talk about it ahead of time, combined with the vineyard stuff. And
I think-
talk about it up front.
So one of this is what topic was left out, I think that's what she's alluding to.
Yeah, well, Don is right. This is all about grapes and vineyards, but there's other factors up there. And she's saying that, this is one of the topics that should be addressed in future surveys.
All right, so give me an example of what one question about the housing would be. Like, just for example, just off the top of your head, what would you want to know, the public would want to answer about housing? What would the
Do you
question be?
feel you can combine housing with vineyards?
But that's not a
in
question
conjunction
for them to
with
do. That's not their question to answer.
I'm
Well, we
just trying to
did-
head off
It's
what's
legitimate.
coming.
It's a legitimate question, and it's legitimate to say no, except you can't do anything. So the issue is, are you just gonna have housing and not have it?
No, but then you can make a little better plan for the people who are going to object. Be prepared ahead of time to
Strategic is
answer,
to see
be
what kind of
strategic.
support you're gonna have, and what kind of rejection you're gonna have
So
from.
you would be wanting
citizens.
to ask the question of more so of what they might feel is the problem versus
Right.
an objective yes/no thing.
Right.
Because
That would be worth
that's what the vision is, right? It's a combination of both.
Well, it
So,
has to be just because of what we have to deal
so
with.
then how do we know what we're gonna tackle with, or what kind of response we're gonna get back if we don't do a survey now?
Well, all I can tell you is when we dealt with it with Jonathan's property before, it turned into a nightmare
And it's
because
going to again if we
Yeah,
don't
I don't think so. I don't
strategize.
think, they don't have a choice.
If there's a question I have right now, the question is, when we talk about housing, there seems like there's an opposition to housing in general.
Yes.
Well, that has nothing to do with, unless you're asking the question of how well do we want the city to balance the development of housing to be complementary or work with a vineyard
Right.
agricultural setting, that we really do versus all housing. That might word and say, yes, I want you to do that, which means you're agreeing to have housing and vineyards.
So one of the questions, and I'm not in favor of asking questions that drive us down the cul-de-sac. It doesn't, and then you can't, you gotta turn around, that you can't resolve. But I think something that we did learn, after all of the rhubarb was, we don't want to combine, in my case, open space and housing. So then we went back and we remapped it into nothing but housing. And immediately after that, significant number of people in the community came up and said, would you go back and look at some, because we didn't think you could do that, and there's no other use. You've taken all the open space out, you've taken all the drainage out, you've taken everything out, and you just made out. So, Don, the question was, do you want to have nothing but housing, which is already approved, or do you want to restrict the acreage used for housing and add vineyards? That's probably a fair question, because that's something that we can actually do. That doesn't reduce the number of houses, it just makes the amount
I
of
think
space.
we're
that
arguing on the
persists.
same side here. I don't
I think what we need to do is
Because
find out.
Well, this is why you hire place workers.
So we're throwing ideas out there. What topics were left out? I think that's one of the topics.
But I don't think very many people are gonna say, I'd rather have just housing in the way that
Well,
map
no.
is approved.
No.
Well, I guess what I'm saying is,
But the
I'm
other
not
thing
sure
is,
why
those
you're
two
asking.
maps are not the same two maps either, so, I mean, you showed us on the second map where your property is just a little piece of that already that was drawn in for that. So the maps themselves are misleading. We have to get a better idea, maybe an artist, what's the word I'm trying to?
A rendering?
A rendering, thank you, of
Concept,
what could be, a concept that could be with the two together.
Mhm.
Instead of just those hand-drawn maps or your tract map that's on. So
okay.
we need a rendering of what it could be with like Disney landscaping and berm to
I
separate
think we
everything.
need to go through that exercise also. But that's not a survey question. That's an exercise where the owner's coming in and saying, based on what it is you're talking about, here's how we think we can do it. Here's how we think we can run the infrastructure, and we can get the points of ingress and egress, and we can provide a reasonable place to live and also preserve the 60% of the property for.
Again, we're arguing on the same side, but you're asking what topics were left out, and
Okay.
I'm telling you what topic was left. We don't like it, but it was left out of the survey.
Quick question, so, and this is just in my ignorance, if we don't get an understanding of how the public's gonna react because they can't do anything, it's already gonna be done. Didn't they stop it before? I mean, didn't the community come to stop some sort of development before?
Well, you know what,
Even if we could come to agreement and say, okay, we're gonna, have the same density, we're gonna put it in this corner, the rest of it's gonna be vineyards. It'll be beautiful, right? Somebody all stand behind. But is the community gonna be able to accept that also? Or can they stop it? That's kind of like ignorant question.
The person that stopped it before was Jonathan Weldy. The community didn't stop it, Jonathan Weldy did. He saw all the opposition, so he backed off. And he didn't have the votes at the council to proceed based on the public outcry.
So it was.
Would you agree with this,
public
David?
that-
Yeah, no, I think from a development standpoint, we got plowed at the planning commission and didn't go forward with it. We retrenched at that point in time and then came back with what arguably is the worst.
and I have to tell you, I was one of these folks that Jonathan is talking about, because, you know, initially when we looked at it, you know, of course, we're all in love with the land. I mean, every single one of us is in love with the land. And when we were thinking, oh, man, we don't want to see that built out 100%, oh, we didn't want that. You know, we were thinking, no, we don't want that. And this was, what, 20 years ago, 15 years ago, 17?
Going that long.
How long ago was that? It feels like it.
It feels like all
It
kinds of
feels
time.
like it. But you guys, you know what it did? It took the olive, and I wish we could put it up here so we could see it.
It's coming, Christine, it's my
Okay, but it
presentation.
took everything away from us that we have now and that we enjoy up there, the beauty of it all. It took it all away from us. And then after we thought about it, we thought, shoot, did we shoot ourselves in the foot? Because instead of getting 100% of nothing, because we don't have anything, those are all built out, the homeowners are gonna own 100% of it other than that green area there.
Which is- This is all slow.
We built through all of it, every
Yeah,
single.
and then we
bit.
thought,
There's 6
shoot,
of those
I can't ride my
acres.
horse in there, there's oaks, there's all kinds of stuff, there's a trail going through there. And then we, you know, 2 years later, 3 years later, you know, we're looking at it going like, what possibly could we have a problem with? Because now we have a chance of getting 60 or 40% of something when we had nothing.
And I get that, but my question goes a bit, so we're moving forward that, can the public come back, do an outcry, and cause it not to go forward?
No, he has the right to
Well, no,
build
they could-
whatever he
They could
wants.
stop
That-
something new, and that's what we'll end up building.
Yeah.
Because it's already approved.
Got it. I understand.
I think the probability is no one in their right mind is gonna say that's a better plan than preserving part of the land for agriculture, open space.
Yes.
And so are we gonna be able to take this to reduce it to the density that you want and then be able to design the vineyard around it? Is that
Well,
the
we
option?
have 184 lots approved
That's-
now.
Mhm.
And they're all 1 acre or better, some of them is 4 acres. If you say, we're gonna take 184 units and we're gonna make them half acre, that's a little less than half of the property. So it depends on how much consolidation you're gonna do on those houses. And it's just math. It's just
Yes, right, yeah.
math.
It's like a balancing act, lot size versus trails, no.
Will there be some sort of a rendering so we can get an image of what that would look like?
You know, it's like this. The smaller the lots, right, the more area there are for grapes. Right, we can all agree on that. But there comes a point where your lots are too small and you don't hold the value, and you want to hold all the value on North Finch. If I have a house up there that's worth $1 million or $900,000, I want lot sizes that are, and houses that are commensurate with, that would sell for that amount in that area.
Livermore did it.
Yeah.
10,000 square foot
These
homes.
are $1 to $7 million houses on 10,000 square feet.
And
Livermore's high.
But
Livermore's high.
That's our best area.
right.
Yeah.
If we can keep, if you go too small, then the product doesn't work. It's bad for the neighbors. If I live on the North Bench, I don't want the product too small. If you go too large, then not only do you not have enough room for the grapes, but your builders don't come. They're not gonna build them. And why? Because the cost of infrastructure is too much to bring up there. There's just too much,
What do you
they don't want to have
What do you
it.
think is the compromise size?
Well, the one that I worked with, that I compromised with, that I put together was the lots are from 12 to 19,000 square feet, which is a good size. Average lot size is 14,500 square feet. I have about a 250-foot buffer between the street, trees, and the graves to make that happen.
Where's that at? For a acre, so that's like a quarter acre.
Yeah, it's like a quarter acre.
Caesar, it is a quarter to a half acre. It's in that 10,000 to
Right.
20,000 square feet.
Is that something you could do there too?
House trail, horse trail, and when I'm working on horse trail, it not only goes through the vineyards and through the open space area, but also goes through the residence area as well. So, I mean, I think there's ways to design everything we want in a project and leave a lot of space open for grapes.
I got like two things on this. We're trying to ask a question to people who may not understand the question. But if we create it, like we talked earlier, maybe more of an open kind of thing, it's like, you know, would you want to see to encourage, you know, for future home development to, you know, to make sure we're setting aside an appropriate amount of open acreage for vineyards in relationship with, like, I'm agreeing in principle to that without specific sizes, but I would rather have more open land for vineyards. And when we talk about development of property or homes, they were taking that into consideration, something like that kind of question.
If I may, so we did kind of reference some of the buffering as part of the last thing, so at least kind of starts, I think, the conversation. Well, perhaps a more kind of effective question, since we can't necessarily say, do you want just this or this? More setting a range of questions on if you had the average lot size of this, but this much acreage of vineyards, would you support that? And then like a follow-up question, if you had this lot size and this much, that where you kind of set, where does that pendulum swing? How much of the clustered ranchette makes sense to get more vineyard land versus, and better, would that perhaps better encapsulate some of the questions that you're hoping to
I think
achieve?
you're headed in the right direction. I didn't follow everything you said. I thought you asked three questions in the same sentence, but yeah.
Well, it'd be almost like three follow-up questions and seeing kind of where that magic pendulum swinging up.
You could just state straight out front, the state is forcing, I'm paraphrasing. The state's forcing us to build housing. We have an option on how to do this. Would you rather do it A, B, C, or D? You know, which would be your preference to see it happen?
Like a 10, 90, 30, 70, 40, 60 kind of.
I think you guys are barking up the wrong tree. I think housing needs to not be a question. It's too Machiavellian for somebody to ask, you know, a one-word question like that. But you know what, let's think about this. You know, we're talking lot sizes and all that stuff. Put your thinking cap on. Whisper Ranch, right there in Mesa Grande, right? On Mesa Grande up Wildwood Canyon, those are 1/4 acre minimums. Nice community. Whisper Ridge, Wildwood Canyon, and Wildwood Estates, those are 1/2 acres. The North Bench, a lot of those coming off. You know, Bryant Street, those are 1/2 acre. Mountain Gate, the new community, those are 1/2 acre communities, right? Some of the new customs over there on Oak Glen Road and those cul-de-sacs that were customs, right? Those are 1/2 acre minimums. So, Hidden Meadows.
The agriculture piece.
Hidden Meadows are 1/2 acres. It's beautiful. Can you imagine Hidden Meadows with viticulture in it? Bobby?
So I remember, I was at that meeting with 300 people in Pittsburgh.
Pittsburgh.
So
Poor
much
Mark
fun.
Hoffman. Oh, I love
And
Mark.
Paul Fugu was kind enough to call me out and pull me to the front. But I was surprised, I saw that plan, all the community remembered from the whole discussion was 1/2 acre lots. That plan development had 1/2 acre, 3/4, 1 acre, and 1/4 acre lots.
And it left our blue lines open,
And
you
there was
know?
a lot of open space, and then they poo-pooed that. I don't think we need another survey. Personally, I think we've got enough information.
It's black and
to
white. You can't
proceed
change
to
it.
the
You
next
can't ask
step
them,
of
hey,
this conversation.
what if you ask them A, B, C, and they want C, and, you know, it's not even an option? I mean, the builder's gonna do what he has a right to do, and whatever else is a change in the future, but that change isn't up to the public, it's up to the city council and the planning committee, and the builder.
And the developer.
And the developer, he
The
may, you
developer
know.
has the last word in all of this. I said that at the council meeting, is that we can ballyhoo as much as we want, but if he decides to record that map, all bets are off.
This is gonna go up.
So, to ask the people whether you want any type of housing or not is not the issue. Housing is coming. Now, regardless, it's an approved map. All he has to do is record it and it's a done deal. Or you can come in with a modified map, maybe something similar to what you had before, and bring it forward and let council or let the committee decide this is appropriate, and then bring it to council and let us affirm that recommendation and we move forward.
But it goes back to the question, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
That goes back to the question, once that is changed, because that's already firm, it can just be recorded. Once that is changed, are we gonna have an issue with community coming in and bombarding that plan also?
They can.
So they can.
And you're going to get pushback. People on my street don't want anything less than 1 acre.
So can we prepare for that? I think that's what the question is, can we?
Caesar, that's gonna happen to you with your neighbors.
Oh, I know.
You know what I mean? And there's a way that you deal with it. And there's mitigating things that you deal with. You have to deal with it, you know?
Excuse me, one of the things that's gonna happen is I won't bring another map forward without any certainty.
Without what?
Without any certainty.
Certainty.
But it seems
This-
like,
this
it seems like
community
the
is-
previous, the
is
history, the history already gave you enough information, that's what you're saying, right? History already gave enough information of what the community will allow, so there's no need for another question.
But the community was malleable. From a bad plan to a good plan, we would approve his plan all day long now.
So, look, if I may,
Mhm.
what percentage of Jonathan's plan is the area that we're talking about?
It's about 312.
244. No, it's that piece right there.
It's this piece, Casablanca.
So we're 240 acres.
So what percentage is the 240 acres from what this committee is looking at?
It's about 25 to 30%.
If I may,
It just has to be
his
one
pro-
big open pieces that doesn't have anything else on it.
if I may, his project and the design of the 1 acre lots where there isn't the additional amenities or space for other uses encapsulates many of the other subdivisions that have also been approved in the North End. So this map right here reflects 3 actually different projects. And
Yeah,
so
there's
the conditions or the limitations with the current design and the status quo, so to speak, is consistent across the board for that. So that's part of the question for everyone is how do we change that status quo so that the land can be more valuable to the community at large?
Because that's only the way they're gonna verify it. That's the only way they have money to do what they need to verify it.
What's the other 70% right now? From what we're looking at, just so an overview. So-
It's all zoned for 1 acre lots.
And some approved maps.
Just like
Some has
just
maps.
But there's
some have
approved
maps.
maps, right?
It's just that these three have prescriptive rights because there are approved maps. So if we don't do something better, this is what's gonna happen. And
This
it
doesn't
is,
include-
it is a lost opportunity, I think.
Chris, these aren't the only approved maps,
No,
just so
they're
you
not.
know, there's more up there, yeah.
Jonathan, just to clarify, just that bottom left corner, that's your property?
Right here, this,
That one.
Yeah,
this,
The one on the top and the one on the right, that's.
One on the-
this
one
is
on the
Cherry
top is
Croft
there.
Heights. That's
Okay.
left.
It's 320
Up
and
to
the
Carter,
one,
right? That goes up to Carter?
yes, and the one on the end, 80
And
acres.
those
that's
are already
That's
approved
quite
also?
Yes,
Is there to sell part of that?
all of that is approved.
No.
As we see it there, it's already approved.
Well,
Yes.
it's not quite like that, yes.
Similar.
Yeah, but it's logged all the way through. and there's no-
So what-
There's some drainage courses.
I didn't bring that this week. We should have last week.
Yeah.
We have a exhibit showing all the maps, but not all the tentative maps are scanned to show this type of detail.
So Jonathan,
There is none, it's in people's.
this
yards.
is 600 acres we're looking at approximately?
Yes,
Okay, so outside of this, how much are we talking about? That we're looking at vineyards and all of that? How many acres,
It's a little over 1,000 acres.
other than the 600?
Including the 600.
All right, so now we're getting somewhere. So we have 600 acres that's approved for housing. We have 400 acres that's available for vineyards.
Some of that is
Those are
also,
Also have some.
It all has,
Overgrown by developers. Probably 80% of the available.
that's why this field trip is gonna be real
That
good.
is 1 acre or better. And that's why this is so important at this point in time, because this is a wonderful idea to have beneficiation, but we've got housing committee and all of it. How are you gonna do that? So you're gonna have to provide a path to take less space in housing to create more space for other things.
That really is the purpose of this committee.
So that's what I'm getting. So is there a chance that developers like yourself would reconsider at this point if we are able to do something?
Yes. So here's what happened last time. I brought a map forward and got rejected, so we did what we could. We plotted this through. And then several people in the community came forward who had been really vocal and said, we didn't think you could do that. Now that you've done it, we like the other one better.
How do you like it though?
Would you go back? This is a disaster. This is a combination of the landowner and developer and the city and the community coming up with the worst conclusion.
This is a camel.
The worst conclusion. Wow. I did the only thing that I could do and the community wouldn't accept anything else. And it's the worst use of the land. Because there's a blue line stream that runs through 18 residential lots. It's gonna be in people's backyards. They're gonna devastate it. You're never gonna get that ecology back. It's a bad plan. It's all I could do. So when the community, several people came back, not everybody, several people came back and said, oh, what about that other plan? I said, look, I prefer the blue plan. That's why we made it. Except there's nobody to negotiate. There's nobody to negotiate with because you still have people on the north bench that are really zealous about it.
So even considering this versus what you had initially, you don't think people would be happier with what you had initially now?
I think they would now, but I'm not getting advance the risk to go forward. Now, you put a specific plan overlay that says, you got 240 acres, you can build 184 units, and you can make a quarter to a half acre, and the balance of it can be used for these uses. And it is an overlay that I can depend on. So the city council is looking at it going, does that comply with the overlay or doesn't it? Not, do we like this idea in the whole universe? That's a certainty.
So can I make a motion to do that right now?
No.
Okay.
absolutely not. Absolutely not.
You spent $100,000 for the first plan that was poo-poo, so therefore you're not.
You guys, I was there and I'm gonna tell you, it wasn't that benign. It was a very contentious and heated several meetings. You know, Jonathan gave us several plans and everything, and you know, I'm one of the ones that would vote for a different plan than this. We didn't say, hey, build this, we freaking love it. We didn't say that. What we said is we couldn't live with a a lot adjustment, and he goes, fine, then I'll do
And
this.
you had issues with his.
So I'm just telling you, that's what's gonna, yes, we all did, and the whole committee was up
What
there.
do you, how do you feel today? Though?
I want that what he has, the other plan, this is a disaster.
This is part of the-
But listen to me, the point is, if we don't do it now, right, then this is gonna happen in the other stuff, in the other phases. There are tentative maps that are approved, there are maps that are approved. So when we're talking about land like this, you know, we're talking about all this land, and I wish we had pictures of it, and when we go up there, we're gonna see all this land, right? Guess what? We're talking about land, and as it goes further east, it's so beautiful. And guess what's there? The Five Winds Ranch and the El Dorado, the most beautiful open area there. So it makes sense to do the right thing with the beautiful land we have there. You know, the Wine Alliance says, hey, let's just put vineyards up there and not do anything else. Well, it's not possible. He has beautiful land up there, and we need to work with him to make it the best case scenario.
That's an incorrect statement. The Alliance never said, let's do vineyards and nothing else. We wanted to make sure that that wasn't happening. As you mentioned, it's a monstrous map and it's the worst thing ever. We wanted to be able to have a solution that it's a win-win scenario for everybody. That's what real estate is all about.
Yeah, but that's what this committee is supposed to be doing.
Right, so again, 11 meetings up to today, which we're coming to towards the end of this meeting, 11 meetings, and all we've been discussing has been those tentative plans of what we can do.
You made a lot of progress.
We have.
And the progress was, is the wine industry viable? And is it valuable? And is it something that we want to take a chance on doing a different land plan to give it a path to grow? So I wasn't involved in those meetings, I watched, but you've made great progress to bring us to a point to say, okay, now we got to figure out what the land plan is going to look like. And then you start talking about smaller lots, which is part of the emotion of this whole thing. It's kind of like, well, it's not going to be 1 acre. What's it going to be? If we concentrate on what we're getting in exchange for that, and stop people from saying cluster means density, you're going to get more than was originally planned. Nobody is talking about putting more houses up there than was in the general plan or is in the current zoning. Nobody.
And that is being clarified now.
Except for the people that are intentionally trying to mislead. And they're saying the cluster means more housing. Build out in Chapman Heights, you're gonna build 100 more houses. What about traffic? That's not what anybody's talking about. And so part of this process is trying to make sure that people on both sides of our table are helping some of those other people that are intentionally misleading people to know what the facts are. So,
May I, Christine, just?
Bobby Duncan has been waiting.
So I don't think we need any more survey questions personally, because I think we need to get to the nuts and bolts of what we're talking about at some point here pretty quick, so we can really figure out how to help Caesar develop his property and what incentives we're gonna give the landowners to move forward and create the overlay. I don't think we need more, that's just my opinion, I don't think we need more information from the public. Everybody loves this idea, obviously.
So
I agree, I think we should keep it moving.
I was having a hard time thinking of more questions.
Yeah.
So my question is, just sitting here, I think, and clearly I'm the least knowledgeable here, so I love that I'm seeing these things right now. Just looking at our committee here, can we get a survey in this room on who would be against going for what was presented earlier? So we have an understanding of there's a better way of doing it, or what he's done in the past is acceptable considering the vineyard.
Who would be against it?
Yeah, I think that we're 100% there.
But we're not getting to do plan development like.
I'll just ask you.
We're going to make it a lot smaller.
The map.
create a lot more space.
Do we have the bubble map?
Isn't that what he had?
I don't think about that.
What he had initially was plan development, which was various lots with a lot of open space, but not enough open space for vineyards. His plan did not allow for enough open space for vineyards, because he had 1 acre, 3/4 acre, and so forth.
Well, that was the subject then.
But he's up for it now, right?
No, he couldn't do it unless he took the overlay that ensures him that he can do it.
That's right.
So why
This kind of summarizes the other plan. First of all, Wilson Creek, that's really good, Jonathan, that you brought that up. We have 0 public open space and blue line streams in private yards, and no public trails. So it's a real missed opportunity.
not our finest work.
Yeah, and then Oak Glen Scenic View Corridor, we have rear lots extending all the way to the right of way. no public trail, and private lot walls 10 feet from the pavement of the street, more or less.
So I think part of it is, as this effort, so the map that Weldy had as part of that planned development before the 1 acre lot isn't something that I think that makes sense in the context of establishing the ADA. And so there is, as part of the vision efforts, is establishing more key community features that are important. So like the trails, the open space, the buffering, and getting those standards, getting the spots where the wineries make sense in terms of the street appeal and access for those that are visiting, those tourism, to minimize impacts there. And I think it's setting aside where do those puzzle pieces all fit appropriately and getting to that detail. So the map itself that Weldy had before, I don't think is a good representation of what should be ultimately thought of as how to develop vineyards. Because it wasn't designed with that perspective in mind. Is we're trying to establish what those perspectives are, so then when the property owners are developing their site plan and think of how do I develop this that makes sense, we kind of set the stage of this is where the vineyard should go, this is what works functionally best, and then in terms of that residential side, that market side for the zoning, is that also makes sense too, and then that way the community at large gets the benefits that we're trying to achieve.
So going back to, I'm just trying to keep it simple. And what's stopping us from recommending to the city council to give developers that overlay protection?
We're developing the overlay
We're
here.
doing this.
That's what we're doing right now. We're establishing those parameters and the criteria.
The 1 acre lots, the zoning right now is 1 acre lots, so we need a specific plan to change the zoning.
From the general plan.
And create a comprehensive plan
Okay.
that shows the areas for vineyards.
Do we have to create the wheel all over, or can we set some parameters that have already existed for vineyards to take place? Like, are we starting from scratch? Or are we doing something that has worked, or we're just looking for acre lots? This percentage is vineyard, this percentage is housing?
So there are pieces of all the code stuff that we can draw from, but the twist of it is how do we design it in the way that is appropriate for Yucaipa? What is those thresholds? And then certainly also as part of the survey, one of the public comments that we got a lot in the actual Facebook stuff is infrastructure, water, and so part of those elements includes, the recycled water for the water district. How do we get that stuff out there so that the water usage for the grapes is essentially, no impact to the community's water supply, and getting through some of those more technical elements, but establishing those plans. Some of the details of, okay, we're gonna have a winery, we're gonna have parking for this many seats and that stuff. All that stuff is relatively canned, but it's how do we get that pendulum to swing appropriate for you guys?
So Chris, ideally from the planning, what I would love to see is some sort of zoning overlay that says you can use half of your property for housing, and you can use half of your property for viticulture or open space. So you give up any development rights on half of it to get a tighter development on the other half. So half, right?
Okay.
And for every 50 acres or 25 acres that you put into vineyards, you can have a 2 acre allocation of a winery. So it's a commercial use. So I have 3 parts to the use of my land. Then I get to figure out how to put those pieces together. I happen to have a big old chunk of Oakland Road. So one of the things that I would love to do is not have houses butt up against Oakland Road, but also have it be part of the event, the experience that you have when you go up Oakland Road, to have a couple of wineries there, a couple of lines that go off to tasting rooms or something like that. If you thought that this community was upset about doing housing there, if I had tried to put a commercial zoning there, it would have been eventful. Okay. But if, as part of this, we say, so with a certain amount of land, if you use it this way, here are the things you get. You can do the same number of houses that are in the zoning now as 1 acre. So your number of acres, here's how many houses you get. You put them on 50%, you can use 50% of the property for viticulture or open space or recreation or something else, but not development. And for every acre that you put into vineyards, you get some sort of commercial capability of acreage. And I don't know what those percentages are. I don't know what they are. But from a land developer standpoint, I can work with those rules. I know that there are rules there and that it's already approved. That if I check those boxes, if I have substantial conformance, then it's up to the city council not to approve something that is politically deaf. They already did that when they approved the overlay plan. But then they're approving a project that is either consistent or they're not approving a project that's inconsistent. So we're trying to get sort of the rules of what this looks like. How do we get vineyards in residential property? And how do I monetize the residents that I have now without doing that bad plan? Does it make sense?
That makes sense, but then, so your feedback or maybe your suggestions should be coming to this planning committee for us to look at if it's something that we're willing to do or not.
Well, what Jonathan is suggesting is actually very similar to the San Diego County tiered winery ordinance.
I'm just saying, some sort of, and I don't know about the percentages, and I don't know about the language of it, but all I'm saying is, I think we want to allow, if you're gonna take away the existing entitlement, let's put something better in place, and it's probably a combination of those three things. So how do we do that, and what does it look like? And to the public, the answer here is, you're already screwed with housing. There's gonna be 184 houses there, one way or another, somehow, you can't make them go away, right? That's that courtesy of Sacramento. But if we can figure out a better way to do it, courtesy of the legislature.
Thank you.
You guys, there's a fine line between builders and the city and the land. And to work together, it makes sense, and to have a beautiful plan makes everything so much better. And, you know, it has to morph into different things, but it has to make sense for everybody. And, you know, the thing that always comes to mind when I think of Yucaipa, I'm a real estate broker, every time a new person moves here, they want the door shut. Boom, let's shut the door. Nobody else can move here. You know, I want it rural. I don't want it to change. I don't want any more building. I don't want any more housing. Well, that's not a choice that everybody makes. It's funny. I said the same thing when I came here, you know, and I saw houses and I go, oh, we love Yucaipa. We never even knew Yucaipa was here. Well, that's how it is. It's a treasure, you know, and we do it right. We have one chance to do it right. You know, we got together and we head-butted with John, the whole community. And then this came up and he said, yeah, I can stick it right up your butt. And this is what you guys are going to get for not dealing with me. And that's pretty much what it was. That's pretty much what it was. He did the worst case design and he says, I can do that if I wanted to. And I don't blame you because we really put you to task. But the bottom line is, it's not about personalities or anybody, it's what's best for Yucaipa. And what's best for Yucaipa, and you know, we have a scenic corridor responsibility that we had to adhere to, that's part of the general plan. So we have to keep that scenic corridor because Oak Glen Road is our neighbor, and that's part of our agreement, right? Is part of the sphere of influence and all that kind of stuff. But I'm gonna let Dee Dee talk, and then Tony has something he'd like to say.
Just real quick, because I was there when you had your meeting, and as a public, we went there told that if we gave you half-acre houses, you'd put in twice as many houses. And so we had that mindset that, no, he's not just gonna go 184, we'd go half-acre, he'd be building 400 houses. And that's where we were wrong as the public.
And I appreciate the perception, except there were people in that group that were intentional on it. All of the exhibits that we showed.
Mostly, and we're so crowded in there,
All the exhibits we showed exactly the zoning density that we have.
And they did tell us that, they were telling us there were more, so that's where we were.
Because that group didn't want, and there are groups who don't want development on that land.
Right, but it's gonna happen. And so with your housing, cluster ranchettes, will you run the vineyards? Will you sell the vineyards? Who takes care of all these vineyards?
I don't think.
And that's what Caesar addresses, that we have to have somebody who knows what they're doing, not just.
So here's, for the purpose of discussion, I'm getting.
Okay, hang on a second. Finish.
The housing in the community. I mean, Donna's, and Caesar had photos of what happened with,
In Livermore, when they
with the demonstration in Livermore. And I can take you other places where we have made builders tear out citrus, but then put in a corridor of citrus along with Columbia, right? And the HOA is maintaining it, and it's full of citrus rats and it's a mess. Because the HOA is doing it not because they're any good at it.
This picture is an HOA.
So if I were teasing it, then Lisa Caesar or make it
Okay, so it
available
didn't
with some
need
extra.
HOA, you know, it's gonna do
But I'm
it.
still told. So if he doesn't do a good job, the HOA is in a bin. As opposed to the HOAs can do landscape maintenance on roads. Other than that.
That's Livermore.
Okay, thank you,
Yeah.
that's.
So-
just what-
How about Tony Hicks? Do you have something to add, and then we'll go to Tony Matlock?
I would agree.
Tony Hicks?
I would just say on the farming side of it, some of the pictures I've seen, you've got these buffers and these small sections of grapes going through houses. I don't see that as a good option. I like the idea very much of along Oakland Road, putting the housing in the back, and basically, instead of those 3 rows of trees that you have down in Redwoods as a buffer, they're full of rats.
Those weren't mine, right?
No, but I'm just, not
The Theodores?
but the problem with farming is not a clean operation, okay?
No.
Grapes require a lot of spraying. It's not gonna make residents very happy unless they're growing organic, which the market for organic grapes is upside down. You cannot be profitable at that in a boutique type farming. I don't know how many acres of grapes that Temecula has.
Yeah, don't spray your grapes, please don't spray your grapes.
Well, how many?
We're going to rabbit hole. Just to make a point though, real quick. Preston, how old is your vineyard?
Well, we have sections, but those 8 years old.
8 years old. How many times have you had to spray because of any kind of pest?
Never.
How many?
And not because of our location.
I have 40 acres altogether, but right now, I have about 2 acres of grapes. There will be.
Right.
Yeah. And part of that because of our location.
But it's operation, farming operation, it's not something you necessarily control, is unless you're designating something as organic only, which makes it very difficult to farm also. So if you're gonna have residents, you're gonna have to have cheap water to make this thing work on a legitimate scale of any type.
One of the nuts and bolts I'm
Right.
trying to get to.
And you're gonna have to have outside grapes that are gonna supplement, because I don't see the acreage of grapes that you have in this valley potentially being anywhere near enough to support one winery, much less multiple.
Just about everybody does anyway.
Right.
The grapes are.
Unless you're Wilson Creek that was built on, $1,500 an acre land 40 years ago.
Yeah.
And that's the difference, at some point, those people are, it's very hard to be, unless you're selling a bottle of wine for $20.
75% Yucaipa grapes with 25% from Lodi or Paso Robles. Those blends happen everywhere.
Well, they do very much. I mean, there's winemakers that don't grow any
She
grapes.
just had a great idea.
But
It's not.
But that's the only thing I would,
I know that. Fine wine and dine.
from an agricultural standpoint, that needs to be looked at more, because I don't think it looks great, I live in a vineyard, well, until the tractor comes by with the spray rig, it's spraying.
That's one of the things that we've been
Well, that's-
discussing a lot.
Yeah.
Because doing harvesting, go ahead.
I'm a winery and I do not own vineyards, but I get my grapes from a source. He does an outstanding job. He is also a member of the Lodi Rules, which is sustainable for us. Not organic, it's sustainable. There are rules. Part of the Wine Alliance and we should be coming up with what the rules are to grow grapes. His father has 30 acres, he has 6 acres. varying degrees. He's profitable growing this grapes. He does not make wine other than his own personal consumption. So there are things we have to understand about business, because it is a business.
It is.
And I think but when I look at it from, here we're kind of getting sidetracked and on track, is, what does success mean? We come up with the overlay of whatever, key 5 elements that we need to do to get developers to do this, that we can then get the land to somebody who is going to farm it correctly. Because I don't think backyard vineyards in, 6 rows is not going to make anybody money.
No.
If you have a half acre or quarter acre, it's not going to make you an inch, or make you're going to be importing everything, and that doesn't work. So we have to try to find a way to encourage the available land that's put together. We've got somebody, we're training people on how to become farmers. We're helping bring in the labor to help do the farm work. And we have the rules on how we're going to farm it, where we're not throwing chemicals left and right. Because gentlemen here aren't doing it, but you get the other bozo down the road that does do it. So we've got to encourage we're doing it the right way.
It's long-term profitability though. That's one of the things that plays into it. We don't have to educate people because we're not grape growers, right? UC Davis has a whole program on grape.
We've taken classes from UC Davis and Riverside.
And UC Davis that program is sponsored by the large wineries. They're the ones who funded originally. So it's if you're going to grow grapes and have a great vineyard, you're going to have some draw to bring in someone who is capable of growing those grapes.
I think we can find consultants that know how to.
Consultants, I don't think will. If you look at what's happened in the past with some of the large growers, when family have come in and taken over those farm operations from the guy who's been running it for a number of years and he lost control of it over the years, and they bring in consultants and those go miserable.
Well, not those kind of consultants. There are people that I know that are local, that had some of the best wine in the world, and they have they're advocates of it. They're the University of Redlands graduates and stuff like this.
Right.
They can come in.
But it still comes down to, can you make it, can you buy the land, buy the water, and make it profitable?
There's an old saying, you can make a small fortune in the wine business, you have to start with a large fortune.
That's right. We always said in the airplane business, if you start with $2 million in the airplane business, to have $1 million in the airplane business, you got to start with 2. So you got to find somebody that's got the passion and the pocketbook to buy enough of land to put it together and farm it for no profit for a number of years.
But it has to pencil out. It has to pencil out. He doesn't want to go and submit another plan because he has to put a few $100,000 in generating that. So it has to be.
And I haven't been here long enough to know the dynamics, and I don't intend to, but I'm just saying. I would say you need to concentrate the vineyards in an area along the scenic route.
Yes.
And that makes more sense to me than lot size. Let the developers do a lot size that they feel will work for them for selling their product at the price point they need to pay for the land and the development costs and make profit on it. Or we're going to
I like the 50-50. I like the 50-50 ratio.
Or whatever it may be. I mean, even if it's offsets where you're taking property and creating this corridor with smaller lot size, I think in the long term, so you don't have dead vines in between houses.
Like that.
You're going to end up with,
Exactly.
exactly.
That's an HOA run vineyard.
That's exactly what
You're not going to have an HOA in the vineyard.
But it's
I don't think you're going to vineyard.
Yeah. Okay, you guys, let's let Sheila finish her presentation.
All right, well,
What's the problem?
I think we've made a lot of progress today so far. What I'm hearing is authenticity. It's very important. And that means getting land under vine. So whatever commercial uses we allow has to be tied to vineyards and wine production. And that's the San Diego Tiered Wine Ordinance, which we can bring to the next meeting and go through line by line to decide if we like it or not.
So in that percentage where I talked about commercial,
Mhm.
a certain amount of commercial, and used wine tasting, I think bed and breakfast, I think restaurant, I think not 7-Eleven, but things that are
Novelty
compatible
store,
with the
restaurant.
experience
Mhm.
of Oakland Road.
Yeah, so we are looking into that in terms of some of the economics as well as the economic report and setting some of those baselines. I do think part of the discussion, we didn't have an example of it, is that bubble map that we had kind of drawn is, I think we're focusing on those elements like the corridor and rather than just having little pockets of lines through different neighborhoods, but better consolidation of how those uses come in. And that's, I think, part of the pendulum swinging is where does those different bubbles kind of go and what sizes are they? Is it that 50-50 split, 60-40, 40-60 kind of thing, and working through those details and making sure that at the end of the day, where everything lands is supported by the market and can actually be developed and turn to the necessary profit to overcome some of the large scale investments that's needed moving forward. So.
Okay, yeah, that's a good wrap up. So, did anyone else want to contribute to what does success mean to you?
I think we pounded that.
Well, in case anyone didn't get a chance to say what they wanted to say. All right. And then, so we did plan to talk a little bit more about the rural elements and go over the results of our visioning exercise.
Yeah, we can kind of do that, but again, do want to stress if there's photos that capture the Yucaipa feel, we will schedule the different workshops at some of the existing facilities, but let's get as much imagery to help really convey, both for ourselves, but then also when we develop a plan, take it to the public at large, we can really demonstrate what we're trying to achieve.
So these were some of the most popular photos from the visioning exercise. Equestrian trails, picnicking near vineyards. This is a dry stacked stone wall with the seating, and this is a tractor with pulling people through the vineyards. And then these were the least favored photographs. It's really obvious that this farmhouse contemporary style is not Yucaipa.
It was too
polished,
too Spanish for me.
This is too Spanish. All right.
Yeah, it just had kind of that what am I trying, that mission kind of feel, and
That Mediterranean, which maybe one.
that's the word I was gonna use, but this is really more mission,
Yeah.
like Western mission than Mediterranean.
With the red
It just
tile
didn't
roof.
feel right.
All right. So that I wanted to put these up so we could just talk a little bit about what wasn't favorable about them. And then maybe this is too contemporary and
That's
dark.
too contemporary for me.
Yeah.
Oh, I think all the red dots were mine, I'll confess.
Oh,
Well,
She
I
owned it.
would go there, I would enjoy it, I would stay there, but it's not Yucaipa, that was one.
Okay. Well, and all the boards are up here if anybody wants to take a second look before we leave.
I think it should be more online, consistent with City Hall and the sheriffs and the white pack, the craftsman style. And it doesn't have to be specific, but it has, something similar, because I think that consistency.
There's an American traditional style we talk about that has the wide front porch.
Yeah. And see
Yeah.
that
Dormer
rock wall
windows.
on the bottom right? All of the boulders are gonna come out of that development, and that our neighbor went through that. It's the Italianate house that's right on Bryant Street now at Grayton. Every rock that came out of that for the foundation, they had it busted up and it's lining their driveway, and they built a little wall, and it's absolutely stunning.
You'll
They
see that.
reused the local materials to create the landscaping.
Yeah, that's
And
excellent.
it cost her nothing extra except the equipment to bust up those rocks as big as this room that came out of that.
And her house is beautiful as well.
That's great.
You'll see retaining walls of natural.
And they just finished installing the
Same thing.
infrastructure for their vineyards, so it's gonna look like our properties are one big property when they're finished, because we're not putting a fence between the two properties.
Very.
These two are Tesoro Viejo in the Central Valley. This is a master plan place works community. So I think this was the combination of the wood rail fence and the stone wall. That got a thumbs up. And this is a pavilion that could be used for events, picnics, et cetera, et cetera. It's really impressive. And then just the plain wall too, or fence, that could go along the scenic view corridor and be very effective to tie the whole area together. So I was wondering, this got read, I was wondering why people didn't like, this is Temecula with the overhead.
We have one.
Temecula.
Yeah, we have one in the uptown,
Okay.
very similar.
All right, so.
So we love it. Don't you guys love it?
It's okay on the boulevard.
Yeah.
Yeah, it looks
Not
nice
up
on the
in
boulevard.
Wine
I
Yeah.
was gonna say, so I think one of the things that I thought about when I saw that, we wanna have the different personalities around our city, and Vineyard personality is gonna be different than Uptown.
Oh, okay,
It's
so
a
that's
thought.
associated more with
Thank you.
uptown.
Yeah.
It should have monumentation though, when you walk, when you enter the viticulture area, it should have
Right.
some kind of monumentation.
Just a different.
Not the
type,
same
which
as uptown.
shows- Okay, got it.
That's fair.
Yeah, that's good.
Still beautiful.
Then this is the Five Winds Ranch concept. You want to say something about
I
this?
do, I want to say something about it.
Go ahead.
Do you guys know about this plan at all? Do you guys know? No? Check it out. This is Oak Glen Road here, right? And this is Five Winds Ranch. And this is a 10-acre piece that the city bought that is surrounded by the El Dorado. So this is west. So all that land that we're talking about is downhill and it slopes up to this point here. And so this is the development that they're talking about. There's a trail that goes up through and it goes up and around. This is the El Dorado over here. So this is starting west. This is a estuary type of lake here. And then this is going to be a little point. There's walking trails throughout. And then just so you know, I think we planted how many trees, Ray? 400, 600?
I think we're up to about 600 now.
And then Make a Difference Day, another 600 trees will be planted. So this trail is in, and then there's trees going all the way around it. They've rough graded this area here, but from here on north is open land and hiking and beautiful, absolutely stunning. So these are multi-purpose trails. This is the building here, and then this is group camping, and then horse camping here. And then this is the El Dorado bathroom right here. And that bathroom here is going to be used by the equestrians here. This is a group camping for like Boy Scouts and church groups things. This is an archery field. And that's kind of behind where the bathroom is at the El Dorado.
This is on the left going up Oakland.
Yes, all the way up.
It's going to be adjacent to the area we're talking about.
Yeah, this is, and you know what, there is a plan where two pieces or one piece like this is vitified. So as you're looking up here, because the building's way off, all you see is just that beautiful mountainside and the hillside. But, you know, this area here with trails all the way around it, this is the estuary here, and then the group camping. They're moving the barn. There's a barn, and the barn will be moved here, and that'll be the central cooking things. And then this is like, what do they call that, where they have? Amphitheater, yeah, it has an amphitheater there. So it's amazing. And if people don't know, the El Dorado was in Oak Glen proper, part of it, right? And the conservancies got together with the city and with the Los Rios Conservancy, and that's how we were gifted the El Dorado. It's an amazing piece of our puzzle, yeah. But that's going to be part of the whole thing, you guys. There's trails, and I brought people the trail maps, and there's proposed trails, there's existing trails, and you know, the trails going up and through here and through the wine country and everything. And you guys, we can ride from the North Bench, from the freeway all the way through Crafton, go all the way up Wilson Creek, go through Jonathan's project here, boom. Go up to the Five Winds Ranch in the El Dorado, cross over, go to the state park.
How large is Five Winds,
Crazy.
and how large is El Dorado, do you know?
El Dorado is what?
A total of 340 acres.
Yeah.
The Five Winds is about 10,
Yeah.
up to 340.
And I think we're gonna start here, so you guys can see it. Because from here, the vantage point west, you can see everything. You can see everything. It's beautiful.
And Preston and Caesar are below this?
I'm below that.
Don't say below, that's just like, you know, the meaning. No, he's higher than
No,
that.
no, I'm talking about.
west of
He's on the other side.
Yeah, north.
West of that, and I'll go be south.
Yeah.
But part of the discussion why we wanted to bring it up is as we're talking about, obviously the status quo, there's no community benefits and no connectivity. Is how do we establish the wine country to blend connectivity to some of these recreational amenities? How do we leverage both the residential component and then also the vineyard component to provide, you know, how can we leverage different resources? What kind of connections would we like to see? a wine trail where you could go,
E-bike, everybody can e-bike.
visit the
Go
wine to El Dorado,
Oh my
whatever
gosh.
that combination may be. There's opportunities to help facilitate that, and so we wanted to at least start the dialogue. What kind of elements do we want to put on the wall so that when we start designing those nuts and bolts, we're not losing sight of some of these other Yucaipa resident community benefits in the effort to facilitate these other components as well. So
And to that, Ben, I think going back to Donna's point, the best way to find that out is by asking the people what they'd like to see.
I know what I want to see. I want to see walking trails and benches. I want to see water every once in a while.
To me, the general plan calls for Oak Glen Road to be a scenic view corridor, and this is really accomplishing that goal.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
it gives us an opportunity to continue that through the specific plan property.
Is that a vineyard there?
Yeah, that's a vineyard.
Is that a proposed vineyard, or is that what's gonna be there, Christine?
It's proposed.
Well, the city accepted the plan, right? City council approved the plan. Yeah,
The
they
concept.
put that in there when the AVA started. It wasn't there initially.
This is an
Cesar.
enlargement of the.
Yeah.
I drive by this.
What's that?
How big is that piece?
The vineyard
You
part.
know what? I think it's over an acre.
I
Yeah.
think at least 2 acres,
Yeah.
and part of it is, I think, thinking, our effort.
2,400 vines,
Woo! How many bottles of wine?
2 bottles per vine.
Yeah, so part of it is, the city is interested to see how this all comes together, and this property as part of the park, can be also leased out for a farmer to get the vines, farm it and do that stuff and have that part of the overall cohesion of that Oakland Road corridor, so.
Sanguine beauty, it has to be sanguine beauty.
I thought there was another grape that folks were more interested in. Sangiovese is.
That's what's in Chianti,
Well,
super tested.
Yeah.
Zinfandel is doing well, but it's still a long way till we find it.
I know there's been some discussion of Malbec, I guess.
Well, Malbec needs innovation, so
Yeah, it may not be,
that's not.
that's not high enough for Malbec.
Sangiovese sounds great.
So are these, I'm not familiar.
Those are yurts.
Yurts.
Yeah, those are yurts. Yeah, cabinets, yeah. And they're really cool. They don't, they're small and they're up on stilts almost, and they have their own little porch looking over the view, and they have a toilet and a sink, and then there's a central bathroom, and so, yeah, they're a little income producing, but they're very, they're kind of European, very, very easy.
What's the main building plan?
If we're gonna see it on our next meeting, but the building is stunning. It's an old adobe, and it's an old adobe, and it's got a lot of character. So it needs work because the porch and the patios look straight west. And when you first walk in, I know this sounds crazy if you guys don't like the style, but it has like a heavy mission door that's about this thick and mission straps. It's very charming. It's just so charming, but it needs a lot of work. So that building isn't very big. It won't house like 100 people inside. It just won't. But the vision is to have like the patios outside. So there's like a really nice courtyard designed in the front. There's a nice courtyard designed in the back. And somebody, the last owner, bastardized it and put a brand new building right next to it that doesn't fit. So the plan for that, because I think it's a 2-bedroom, isn't it, Bobby, with a fireplace and a bathroom, 2 bathrooms? And so the plan is to convert that into the, well, you were on the committee, weren't you?
No, I was.
Oh, you were, sorry, David. The plan is to convert that into where the caterers go, and also like showers and bathrooms, so when people camp and stuff, they go there and use a bathroom, or if there's a wedding venue. But it's kind of interesting, and just to share a little fact, when we started this committee, everybody's going like, oh, let's do the wedding here and let's put the things here. And then as we started getting public comment and a little bit further into it, I think now the maximum wedding is 90 or 100?
I don't remember actually.
Yeah, I mean, people came in and said, okay, we want it done by 10 o'clock, we want it this way. So, by the time it morphed into the plan, it's a stunning plan. And once you see it, you guys won't believe it. It's just beautiful.
But you're limited to parties of 100?
Yeah, or smaller. It's really, it's an outdoor type of place.
So it's a venue.
Yeah, No, not necessarily, because there's camping.
Well, I mean.
Yeah.
The structure itself is a venue, yeah, for weddings and things of that nature.
But it's more like trails and, as, you know, there's a lot of things, anybody could go there at any time and not be part of the venue. Yeah.
All right.
I think part of it is overall, there's a lot of different resources that we can capitalize on through this planning effort and provide cohesion to different staff. You know, some of the historic buildings, there's a number of historic buildings in the North Bench that may also serve as beneficial wedding or winery venue locations and tasting rooms that might be.
Because if we ever had an air balloon thing, that's the place. They land there.
What other kind of balloons?
Huh?
Not on the streets too. I guess there's a lead balloon, okay.
All right, we were going to talk about the guiding principles, but we can wait on that.
Yes, please, I've been having.
Okay. All right, so our assignments for the next meeting, we want everyone to think about what does a balance of land uses look like to you? And we've had a lot of really good discussion about that today, I think.
Let me ask a question that just popped in my head. How large is that lot on the corner of Oakland and Bryant? That was that commercial lot that was gonna be a little.
North, south, east,
It's 8 acres?
on the north side?
Yeah,
I
The
don't
north
know,
one.
I don't know north and west in this.
Yeah, that's-
Your area, that way?
Yes, across from State Road.
Yeah.
Because that would be the perfect location for a combined tasting room with, I mean, the winery and the tasting room doesn't have to be in the same location. It could be nice, but that would be the
Yeah,
perfect place
That's true.
for a winery and.
Yeah, there might be some perfect place that's not like viticulture, but perfect for that type of
Very
scenario.
visible.
Or not visible.
Or not visible, but anyway, that in my mind is the perfect entrance to the wine country up there if it's built. But I don't know if the owner would be interested in doing anything.
I believe the property is for sale or going to be.
It's got a for sale sign. I've been looking at that, wondering, I wonder what they want for it.
Doesn't it have a lot of drainage and water issues there?
It could be managed.
It could be managed.
But I think that would be a better venue than a little wall sitting there, and you could have more than one vintner coming in with a different spot, different tasting rooms inside the same venue, and it could even still be big enough to accommodate a good sized winery.
Yeah, and everybody
That's
could get a good buzz on their way up to Oakland.
There you go, you just start right there. Jump on the little shuttle down at Park and Ride and go straight up and come back down and see what it is.
All right, so in the, anyway, to wrap up, by the end of the next meeting, we would like to have consensus on the balance of land uses, how much open space versus lots. And I heard 50-50 today.
Love that.
Yeah, and which accessory uses would be allowed?
Lesser than that?
Well, I'm on the other side of the table, I want more than 50%.
More than 50 for vines.
For vines.
Yeah, okay.
Right, but how does that make sense to the builder that it won't pencil out?
That's what I said.
Yeah.
I think it's just important to the builder because you gotta take into consideration sidewalks and streets.
That's right, open space is
No
more.
sidewalks, this is rural, forget the sidewalks.
Yeah, open space includes trails, parks, right of ways.
You hear that, city? No sidewalks in this area.
But you know what, we did it a few different ways in the city. So half-acre lots in Wildwood Canyon, there's 2 different ways. In Whisper Ranch, there's no sidewalks, just like Donna says. And then in Wildwood Estates, there's sidewalks on one side of the street, right? And then up in the North Bench, there's just asphalt berms, And same with Hidden Meadows.
So is this horse property?
No.
That's a question.
Horse property has to be more than 20,000 square feet.
This is.
They should.
Yeah, it'd be.
So I do want to,
Sorry. Okay, sorry.
so I do want to just, as part of the homework, make sure everyone's kind of working, thinking of ideas,
That's for you, John.
starting to get the nuts and bolts, really starting to get into the details. And then that way we have a good jumping off point to actually start developing the standards. And so certainly from that, I think when we have the next meeting on location, it will be kind of a good way to visualize kind of what we're talking about, some of those nuts and bolts, at least high level, and we'll continue to keep refining through the next subsequent meetings. But really, let's keep working on that. We're going to start getting into those uses. We're hoping to have kind of the economic development report as well to kind of see kind of that financial side, the market analysis to help support this growing industry, and then certainly refining that through the next subsequent meetings as well. I did want to note, we have it on here. These dates are incorrect, I think, because I think they're during the holiday breaks. So we'll shift them around, because obviously we don't want to have a meeting during the week of Christmas. Maybe a fun party, but and so we'll keep going from there. I do want to note as well, for those that don't have the phase 1 report or have any questions, feel free to give me a call as well. That way we can kind of make sure that we're moving forward and kind of going from there and keeping the momentum so we can get the standards, so we can really give property owners a good, clear path on, how do we make this work? How do we make this happen? So then that way they can start making the necessary investments to see those vineyards develop and go from there. So,
Can I make a request at a future meeting that we give time? Caesar's got, if we can do it, he's got some beautiful aerial footage of what we saw and how to design where the houses and the vineyards meeting. It's better than these photographs.
You guys, anytime you want to share something like that, you send it to these guys and they'll share it.
If you send it, I can probably send it out as, if there's like a YouTube link or whatever, I can try to send it out to the committee at large as well.
That's part of our thing, when you want to share a public comment, your committee member comment, you send whatever and it's gonna.
I don't have these in a shareable file, that's why.
But we can show them at the next meeting too. I can bring a screen actually if we want to have the meeting at Northport.
That would be great. Then we could describe what we saw, the good and the bad, what we felt was successful, talking to local vineyard owners and winery managers. We talk and locals, what they feel the city did right, what the Conservancy did right, and what they did wrong as well, so we can avoid those mistakes.
That no HOA management, that's
The HOA
that's
was
terrible.
the worst. It's all dead grapevines and olive trees. And the HOA pieces of, they were only required to maintain them for 10 years, and the 10 years is over.
Yeah, that's terrible.
So that's, I just don't want to get into that, but it shows the buffer, which is better than what this photo, and there's just some, we spent, how long were we there talking to, every time we passed another vineyard or winery, we'd stop in and talk to the manager, and they gave us all kinds of information. That the city blew it here, thank God the Conservancy came in. The restrictions on the Conservancy probably wouldn't work here. It was a out of every 20 acres, there was a 2-acre envelope. So if you're gonna build on it, it could only be on 2 contiguous acres, and the other 18 had to be, in this case, vineyards, but it was agriculture. So they set all of those rules into place with the Conservancy, but we don't have enough land here for that to work.
Or any land donated by the Conservancy. Wouldn't that be something?
Well, they were still allowed to build on the Conservancy, but it was a 2 and 20. And if somebody put a lean-to on one corner, that starts the 2-acre contiguous.
Wow.
So you can't put a shack here and a shack over there and have to be right here in this 2 acres.
Before I ask for the motion to adjourn, I just want to encourage everybody to read phase 1 report. In here, there's a study of 7 different wineries that they did for us, and it talks about those different criteria. What's the minimum lots? What's the minimum vitified? What's the minimum? It'd be really nice if we're there and we're visualizing, Preston's and Caesar's property, and we're looking at it from the Five Woods Ranch. We get a visual on it. I think it'd be really easy to make those decisions.
That's been emailed to us, right?
Huh?
That's
been emailed to us. And then don't forget, we're going to be meeting at 3:00 at the Five Winds Ranch, and Ben's going to send us and Chris some information and get it going. And don't forget, part of this whole process is you're supposed to share it with the people you recreate and bring back feedback. And then before you guys scatter, we need a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Do I have a second?
Love you guys, great job. It's so, it's a great practice learning all this stuff, and I can't wait to see all this come to fruition.
Oh my God, that guy's gonna run for something.